What's up YouTube? Time for another review. It's going to be a running vest this time. I've got myself a new Salomon running vest. I've actually had it a little while, but I've been waiting to use it because I was looking to use it for the Tarawera 100k, which is coming up in hopefully February, unless COVID changes things. I've had a Salomon running vest for 3-4 years now. It's been doing me pretty well, and I'm just looking to get the later model because it's starting to fall apart and show its age. To be fair, I've done thousands of kilometers in it, so it's probably about time to get a new one anyway. So this is the 12 set, the Advanced Skin 12 set. This new one here, which is just the latest model of the one I had before. So I'll be doing a bit of a comparison between the two because the older 12 set, which I think I got in like 2016 or 17, it was quite a long time ago. This is a really popular vest. You'll see this at a lot of the races and events. I have it and my wife has it, and you see a lot of them out and about. It comes in a different color, a couple of different color schemes, but I've got it in the black. I think it's called Matador Black Red, something like that. So I've had this a while. I should probably give you an idea of how I load this one out, because obviously I've converted my gear over to the new one, so you'll get an idea of what I'm carrying. Now, I'll talk about the old one for a little bit. I carry quite a lot of stuff because I run up in the mountains and usually on my own, away from other people, and I tend to like to train with pretty much the whole mandatory gear for the race, particularly on my long runs at least. So I'm carrying a fair bit of stuff. So generally, starting in the back, I'll have a dry bag in here. I can't remember which size, but it's not a particularly big one. That will have my first aid in it. Hiker's wool, which is just like some wool that you can put in your socks if you get blisters. Some stuff called gurney goo, which is like a little gel that's anti-chafing gel. Some stuff for summer, like some extra sun cream. Generally stuff that I don't expect to need at all on the run goes in that back section there. And then I'll also have another little Ziploc bag with some emergency food, some like block gels, some energy blocks, some cramp fix in case I get cramping. Stuff I don't expect to need all goes in the back here. Sometimes I put a sun cap in there, sometimes like an extra buff or stuff like that goes in there. And then this old one has like one long pocket along the bottom here that goes right through, and this top pocket kind of finishes here, so it's short, but it's quite big. It comes out a long way and it expands. It's quite stretchy material. So I have another dry bag here, which will tend to have a thermal in it, like a thermal upper, and sometimes leggings if it's mandatory for the race. I'll often have a large freezer Ziploc bag here that I use for plogging, like picking up trash if I find trash when I'm out and running. So that'll be empty most of the time unless I find some rubbish. And on the right here, I usually have a windbreaker or a rain coat, depending on how bad the weather is. I'll usually take one or the other. This old one has these zips here, like at your kidney area. I usually put my car keys in one and my arm warmers in another, but I've had this a long time and these still work, but I've had a lot of problems with these getting gummed up. Like really gummed up. They get like corroded. I've recently washed this and tried to decorrode it with some like olive oil on a Q-tip sort of thing, which has helped a little bit. And in the front pockets, I will put my GoPro if I'm carrying it. My phone will go in here. Maybe like a cap if I haven't put it in the back. Just bits and bobs. My left one is usually comms, things like phones and GoPros and stuff. My right one is food, so I'll put like usually some sweets, things like that. Gels will go in the right one. The rubbish from the gels, I usually have a Ziploc where I put that in. Obviously my water bottles go in here. Usually I carry 2 depending on how far I'm running. There's a little zip at the top. That will usually have a Body Glide in it, which is like an anti-chafing roll-on thing. And then there's some little spaces which they've added in this, which are on this one here. There's like an extra pocket. There's a pocket here and there's actually a space behind it. I will usually put the torch from my Ultra Aspire waist light in there if I'm just going out and it might get a bit dark, but I don't want to take the whole waist light. I'll just take the torch. And GoPro batteries tend to go up here in this little space. So that's pretty much how I have my loadout, and I've had that for years. I pretty much carry that in all conditions. So I was looking to convert over. This does take a reservoir, by the way, this one, if you need to. I do sometimes use a reservoir if I'm going super long, but most of the time I don't. The reservoir tube comes out into this bottom section here, and then it pops out outside here, and then there's 2 loops for holding it. I'm mentioning this because this is different on the new one, as I'll explain in a minute. So that's the old one. This is the old 12 set. I'll try and make this quick, but this is quite a complicated bit of gear, and there's an awful lot of features on it that I need to go through, so this might take a little while. I'm sorry about that. New 12 set. So I'll give you an idea. This is what it looks like. I think it actually looks pretty nice. I think I prefer the look. It's a little bit more streamlined than the other one. It's got some interesting new features. So by comparison, it has these cinch straps down the side here for making it a little bit less. If you've got this a little bit not quite full, and this back area is much bigger than the other. This is massive, this back area. So the main difference between the two is in the design. The back area comes down lower. You can go behind it if you put your hand in here. You can go right through, but the back area comes right down over it. So if you've got tons of stuff in the back area, this bottom section here might be a little bit dense with stuff. But you can get right round under it if you need to. So that's nice. You can still put stuff in these pockets here, but I found that this thing is so big that it just seems to swallow up gear. It seems to have a lot more space than the old one. I'm quite impressed with how much space it has. And there's also, you could put stuff down these cinch straps if you had to, I guess, which is nice. It can take a bladder like the other one. It takes it in the same position. It routes the hose a little bit differently. The hose comes down, there's like a hole internally here that I can feel. The pipe goes through and it comes through into this section here internally, and then it goes between the two sections here. It comes up and then it pops out here, and there's one loop for it here. So you only get the one loop, but it stops that pipe swinging loosely, which is not a major problem. It's never really bothered me, but yeah, it comes out there. Now, I used to like pull the pipe down so it would have a bit of slack and it would be out of the way, and then when I needed it, I'd pull it up, use it, and then pull it down again afterwards. That may not be possible anymore, but the way they've routed it, it may not be an issue anyway, because it's through the pockets. I haven't needed to run with this with a reservoir yet, but because of its very similar design to the other one, I don't think there'll be an issue. In general, the zips are a little bit smaller, a little bit more dainty than the other one, but they are better positioned. They're further away from the body. The big difference is they've got rid of the kidney pockets here, so there's no zips here. I was a little bit bummed about that, but it makes sense because those used to get corroded a lot from sweat, and they're no longer there. So, you know, you get a bigger pocket, it doesn't have corrosion problems, but, you know, you just get used to not having that pocket there anymore, I guess. These pockets at the front do feel bigger because of that, and that they are really quite big. If they're not rammed right full, you can get stuff moving around in there a little bit. It's not ideal, but as long as you ram one of them full and have one empty, rather than half and half, it's not such an issue. And if I show you on this one, because you now have these pockets with zips on the front that you didn't have before, you can fit your phone in there and you can layer things better, so it's easier to fill them and still get stuff out because you've got multiple layers to get them in and out. So it's easier to fill them to capacity than it was before. So it's probably easier just to have one full and one empty than 50-50. Moving on to sizing. Now, my old one is an XL, this one is an XL. Reading the sizing charts, I highly recommend you do that before you buy, particularly if you had the old one. The new ones are very slightly larger, so if you know, this will be cinched down slightly more than the old one. The old one, the bottles would be slightly more over the sides, and I didn't like that. I wanted it to be a bit more around the front. This one is more around the front for the same size XL on me. It's about another inch from each side, so maybe 2 inches it comes in. It does have a little bit more bounce because of that, because in being kind, I have a bit more muscle on the front, and it bounces a little bit more, but it doesn't slide on your skin. It's just your body moving, so you get used to it pretty quickly. Within 30-40 minutes it wasn't an issue for me. It does come with slightly different bottles. I'll go over that in a minute. I found the bottle holders here are much better. they're bigger than the old ones, and it's much easier to get the bottles in and out. And then the new style bottles with the larger top. I have used it with the old bottles, and because the old bottles are very slightly shorter, they do drop down into the pocket a little bit, but you do have the retaining loop which you can put round. Bear in mind these retaining loops are slightly larger because the bottles for this have they have the large speed lid rather than the small one. So, but if you hook this around, it does help stop it dropping. So it's okay. It works fairly well. I'll just quickly show you the bottles. So this is the bottle that came with the old one. This is a couple of years old now. I use this on pretty much all of my runs. This is it's got a 450 marked on it, but it's supposed to be a 500ml bottle. So if you go just above that up to the top, it's 500. It has a small opening. And it's a soft flask with a soft bottom on it. I use this all the time. It's worked fine, it's worked for years. And it has this squishy top on it. It's great. I bought these, which are the Speed soft flasks that Salomon brought out a couple of years back. It has a much larger opening on it, which is awesome if you're going to fill up mid-race from an aid station. They've never really had too much problems filling those little ones, but these large ones are much quicker, particularly if you're going to put tailwind and powders and stuff in there. These are the way to go. And they have this nice top that's super easy to take off. It's super grippy, and the same squishy top. This has a rigid bottom on it, which is supposed to make it easier to push down into your vest. That's probably true. It is easier, particularly on the old one where the drink holders are a little bit smaller. But I do find this, you can feel this on your body a little bit. It does chafe a little bit. After a while, it can be a little bit annoying. So I don't tend to use these very much, these Speed bottles. And this is the new one that came on the new vest. As you can see, it's got a very slightly tapered bottom, which helps put it in quicker, but it's soft like the first one. Because the bottle holders are slightly larger, these go in super easy. These are the nicest so far. And they still have a large opening. Slightly different threading, worth bearing in mind. You can't swap the tops between them, but you know, whatever. It's not quite as grippy at the top, but it's still not that hard to get off. And you can still put powders in there pretty easily. I believe this will hold a little bit more as well, because it's marked up to 450 and then it says 500 here. So potentially this holds a little bit more, but no guarantees. Overall, these fit in the new one the best, obviously. You can put any of these in there, but the ones with the large tops tend to work better because the retaining elastic is made for this large size. You can fit it underneath this old one and it will hold it up a little bit, but it might pop off. I've never had it pop off, but potentially the elastic might pop off and it could drop down into the pocket. So far, I would say this is a great improvement by Salomon on the bottle design, because it's a nice iterative improvement. It's not just a wholesale redesign from scratch. Super like these. In terms of sizing, they've changed the closure. The old one, if you look, it had two separate closures that were basically elastic here, with these like clasps, I guess you'd call them, that fitted onto a loop, and you had two completely independent closures, and then you had a set of loops down here so you could decide where to attach it. The new one, they've changed it, and now it has one long piece of elastic that goes through a central cinch, and then it hooks onto these plastic things here, which then fit onto the hoops. So the hoops are still there. I kind of like this and I kind of don't. Here's what I like. It's much quicker to use. When you've got it the right size, you can unhook these, leave it, and then when you want to put it back on, you can put it straight back on at the same size. You don't have to cinch it down again. That I like. What I don't like is the way these plastic things fit on these hoops is a pain in the ass. If you want to change these, it's super fiddly. You can do it, but it's very difficult. I wish that they had put a slidable, like a hook on here that could slide up and down, and then left the hoops, and you could have just hooked it straight onto the hoop. If you need, once you know which hoop, after a while the hoop that you use kind of ends up slightly distented, so it's really easy to tell which one it is. It would have been easier just to have a little hook on here that you could have just hooked on. Doing it this way, having that permanently fixed, it works okay, but if you need to change these up and down, you won't want to do that very often because it is a real pain. But I suppose you only do it once. I was a little bit, when I saw this in the shops, I was a bit dubious about the thinness of this elastic, but it seems to be all right. It seems to hold up, and because it's one long piece, it stops the weird tensions you get. It seems to be holding the tension much more evenly across you, and it moves as you move. So I'll give them the benefit of the doubt. That said, because I'm near the bottom end of the XL sizing, and because they've made them slightly larger, when I do cinch this down, there is quite a lot of excess elastic here, and obviously it's whipping around and stuff. So I end up looping it around 3 or 4 or 5 times and tying a little knot in it to stop it whizzing around. So this elastic is potentially a bit long, but that might just be because I'm right at the end of the sizing. So it's, I can't really hold that against Solomon. Now, I should note as well, this has a attachment on the shoulders here for the quiver. They have a thing called a custom quiver. Now, I also have that, and I'll be doing a separate review on that. It's a pole holder that you have on your back, and you can put your running poles in it. I'll do a review on that separately. I didn't actually buy it for running poles. I bought it for filming, for like GoPro accessories and stuff like that. So I'll do a review on that next. That'll be coming up another day. But I like the fact that they've given their proper place to fix that on this model. It does also have the usual loops for attaching poles on the front. My poles are not actually running poles, they're hiking poles, so they're quite bulky. So they will fit on these if I have one on each side, which is kind of nice actually. It's kind of nice to have them separately rather than all just up on one side. So that's the way I do it. There is also a loop that comes here that you can put them across your back, but I don't use them like that. I tend to put them down the front if I can. So that's a personal preference thing. Now, I don't want to read too much into this, but I bought this blind online because I'm living in New Zealand. It's very hard to buy things in shops. And the first one I got seems to be fine with no problems. The old one, I bought 3 before I found one that didn't have a problem. My wife bought 2 before she found one that didn't have a problem. The QA was a nightmare on the old ones. The new ones seems like it's all right, to be honest. It's only anecdotal because I've only bought one, so can't read too much into it. But so far, so good. Really, the only other thing I'm a bit dubious about is in this right-hand pocket, they've added this like little trash bag thing that pops out. I get why they've done this. It's nice to put gels in there. I used to carry a Ziploc in my other one, and I did have a problem once where the Ziploc had a slight gap in it, and I got gel all down the side of my vest. It was a nightmare. It dried in the sun. It went hard. It was horrible, and I had to run it through the washing machine like 3 or 4 times to get rid of it. So it's nice to have this little bag. That said, if you put food in there and you're getting food in and out, I found it tends to like flip out every time, which is quite annoying. So I might remove it by just cutting this thin strip here where it's attached, which is quite easy to do. So I might remove that. Having said that, this is one of the smallest pockets in the vest, and it might be handy for like GoPro batteries or things like that, which is one of my criticisms with this. There's not many small pockets. They're all pretty massive. There is this one space up here that I'm not even sure is supposed to be a pocket, but there is quite a large area up here where the whistle is, which maybe is meant to be used for something, but it would have been nice if they had made that into a pocket somehow, or used that space slightly better. It would have been nice to put like a GoPro battery or small items, just there. It would have fitted perfectly, which is a little bit annoying, but no vest is perfect. I think generally it looks a bit sleeker than the other one. It just looks a bit nicer. It's a bit cleaner. The lines are a bit nicer on it. It's personal preference, but maybe it's just the other one looks a bit tatty after so many years. Obviously fit is a personal issue, but I have found the old one. I've used it on 50Ks. I've used it on quite a lot of shorter runs, and I did get a bit of chafing just around my side. After about 3 hours, it seems to start chafing. This new one doesn't seem to have that issue. It seems to be slightly higher on the torso, which is a nice change. Obviously that's personal preference though, so your mileage may vary. On the subject of the bottles, the bottles are very slightly, if I compare here, there, like you'll see the bottles are slightly higher up. And you notice it, the old one you used to have to lift them slightly to get to drink out of them. The new one you kind of don't, you can pretty much just reach down and go for it. It's good and bad. The old ones, the bottles used to stick out a fair bit, and when you'd just taken the first few sips, until you got them down into the pocket, they would like flop over and they'd be flopping as you were running. You'd have to push them down into the pocket to stop that. The new ones, because the pocket comes up higher, that's less of an issue. However, if you use the old bottles, they're a little bit shorter, a little bit narrower, I find that they can drop into the pocket a little bit, so you might want to use the loop. Obviously if you use the new bottles, that's less of an issue. I'll show you the 3 bottles that I've got in a minute. So yeah, I mean, in summary, this is quite a high bar to get to, because the old one is probably the most popular vest out there, and I've loved it from the day I first got it. I've tried a few other ones and nothing's been close. And I had very high hopes for this new one, and it's pretty much up there. It's very good. It's a good iteration on the design. I can see they've tried to make improvements. You have lost those side pockets, but they were also getting corroded with the zips, so it's understandable. There are a lack of small pockets, but again, it's something I can get used to, I guess. Other than that, it can carry an awful lot of stuff. You can fit tons in this. Much more than the old one, I'd say. I do really like these zips on the front. They're a little bit more dainty than the zips on the other one, but because they're in front of the water, they're kept off your body, away from the sweat, so I don't think they'll have as much problems with corrosion in the long term, which is really nice to see. And they feel very usable, super useful when you're running to just put stuff in a zipped pocket. I'm putting my phone in there at the moment, but I think I'll be using them for more and more because of how versatile they are. And having the multi-layering is really nice to have stuff that you're going to get out all the time and stuff you put in a little bit longer, you know, your food versus your phone, that type of stuff. I did find having the water a little bit higher, it has a little bit more of a bounce to it, but that might just be my physical shape. And it might just be the way I was wearing it. You know, maybe I didn't have it cinched down enough, but it's still, we're talking minimal bounce here. This is not a deal breaker by any stretch of imagination. My other one has almost no bounce, which is ridiculous. I've never found another vest like it. I really love my old vest, so I'm really chuffed to find something that's about as good. And I think I'll grow into it. I actually noticed they've lowered the amount of metal on this. If you look at the old zippers, there used to be hard metal zippers and they would get corroded, and then metal zipper. The new one is actually just a zipper and a toggle, so there's less metal on there to corrode, which is a nice touch. They've actually looked at the design and tried to improve things. Probably makes it a little bit lighter as well, to be honest, but I like that. That's a nice touch. One other thing that's new is at the top here, in the back, there is a little pocket. And I'm guessing it's meant to be for your keys, because it's got a red key holder on it. It's kind of weird. I wouldn't use it because I tend to lock my car up when I've already got my vest on, and it would be kind of hard to get it there. And I don't. And my car has quite a large key fob, and it's right on your spine there. So I probably won't use that pocket, or at least not for that. Some people might like it though. I just found it interesting. It's roughly where they used to have the pocket for a survival bag. They used to, in the old one, there's like a little pocket in the back for a survival bag. So that's another little change to the design. I assume they're trying to replace this pocket up here, which I think some people put their car keys in, or this zipped one here. This zipped one here, I've had so much trouble with it sticking. Sometimes I've literally not been able to get it open, and I've had to almost rip the thing open. It's been a real pain. It's just super gummed up from sweat, so I'm kind of glad that zip's no longer there, but it is kind of annoying because I used to put emergency stuff up there, like my body glide, which would be super handy to have when you're out in the field. For now, I'm just putting it in one of the big front pockets, but it's kind of sliding around a bit, so it might have to go into with the first aid at the back. I don't normally need body glide, so I guess it's one of those emergency use type items. Maybe it's not the end of the world. Obviously, there's an awful lot to this, and there's a lot of features and stuff to discuss. So if I've missed anything, or you want me to go over anything else, just put a comment and I'll send you a video, or I'll put a comment back and I'll tell you what I think. I've tried to cover everything, but there is a lot going on here. Overall, it's a great vest. I would highly recommend this. So this is the Salomon Advanced Skin 12. Okay, that's all I got for you today. Hopefully you'll enjoy that review. Leave any comments, like, subscribe, and so on and so forth, and I'll see you guys again.